What is going on, everybody, and welcome to week 9 of the reverse diet series. So, week 9, let's talk about it. I woke up at 174.3 today, which means my weight has more or less stayed pretty stable over the course of this past week, right about that 174 mark. I did more of an average, so like weeks 9, 10, and 11, and 12, I'm going to work more off of a higher daily caloric intake without the keto caloric refeeds that we talked about in the last video. So I've tried to phase out those refeeds for the most part. There was a couple days this past week, or this week 9, where I had a little bit higher intake than planned. My goal was to be around the 3,200 calories on a daily average, and I was averaging about 3,500 calories on a daily average. So my hunger was a little higher than expected, so I ate a little bit more than anticipated on a couple of those days. But that was about the same average that I was at the prior week during week 8. So I didn't really go up in calories any beyond that 3,500, which is good. So I want to talk a little bit about how this has affected my training on a macro standpoint. So when you are dropping your calories, let's just talk about the actual prep for a second here, because this is all tied in. So when I was there towards the end, my protein was low, but my fat was high. My calories were low, but I was in a very anti-catabolic state because my ketone production was through the roof. Ketones are very anti-catabolic, very muscle-sparing. So I didn't really lose any strength there towards the end. However, there's a little bit of a lag effect. So you come out of that contest prep, you start actually increasing calories during the beginning of the reverse diet, and you may see a little dip in performance. I don't think I really lost any strength per se, but I could tell that my body had just gone through something pretty strenuous. I didn't really have a whole bunch of get up and go left in the tank, and I was just tired. I was exhausted. The workouts were good. I felt great. I was able to hit all the PRs. Like, none of my lifts went down really, but I just didn't really feel fresh, if that makes sense. Like, more so of a lag effect than during the tail end of the contest prep in and of itself. Plus, when you're at the end of a prep and you know that the competition day is looming, you're running on fumes from a calorie standpoint, but your mind is on a whole other level. So you've got your mind pushing you really hard in the gym as well. After the competition's over, your mind kind of goes on autopilot and you just start going through the motions almost. So there's a little bit of a lag effect that takes place in the first few weeks of the reverse diet. Now that I'm in week 9, I've noticed that my strength has not only recovered completely, but is actually going up. It's moving in the right direction. I'm getting stronger. My recovery time is much better. My enjoyment in the gym is much more noticeable. Like, I'm having fun. Before, there was just like no neat activity. Anything that was not mandatory, I just did not do. Now I'm like dancing in the gym and just cutting up and having fun, and like I'm much more active. I'm burning more calories through neat activity simply because I have calories to burn. I feel good, and I don't feel like I'm running on fumes anymore, which is a massive plus. It lets me know that we're coming out of this reverse diet and transitioning into more of a sustainable lifestyle approach to nutrition and just well-being. So that's kind of how I've noticed things from a training standpoint. I want to talk a little bit about the ratios. So I'll dive into this in more depth with another spreadsheet video probably next week. But all in all, I've been increasing calories, but I've left my fat ratio very high. I was at about a 77. Let me just pull it up real quick and look at it for my own benefit here. Last week, during week 8, I was averaging about 76.3% of my calories coming from fat. This week in week 9, I'm averaging at about 77.5% of my calories coming from fat. I've just noticed that, especially in the context of the higher calories overall, I just feel much better mentally speaking, energy-wise. I just feel and perform much better when that fat ratio is north of 75%, especially when calories are in a surplus. So that's kind of what I've got going on there. I'm going to keep the meals super simple this week. I'm probably going to do like a 75-25 ground beef, a pound of that, and then like 12 ounces or so of shrimp. I've been wanting to incorporate more shrimp. My protein is going up this week. In week 9, I'm going to be at 100 and, let's see here, about 165 to 170 grams of protein. So incorporating more of the lean meats is going to be good in context of also having those fattier cuts. I'm also doing the keto brick a day, so it makes it pretty easy getting that fat ratio up. So that's kind of what I've got going on from a nutritional standpoint and from a training standpoint. But basically the whole thing I want to recap and just make light of with regard to week 9 is that this is the first week where I've pretty much phased out the keto caloric refeeds altogether. The first, weeks 1 through 9 coming out of the competition prep of the reverse diet, we're all leveraging the keto caloric refeeds, whether that was a 2-day consecutive refeed or one in the beginning of the week, one at the end of the week. There was just a lot of higher calorie days, dispersed amongst lower calorie days, whereas now it's just every single day is just a more sustainable caloric intake, kind of in line with what my maintenance slash surplus level is. I'm going to continue to rise those amounts up. Like I said, I've been pretty well at that 174 pound mark. So until I start to see any adverse effects go up there, I can keep titrating those calories up. I'm going to do another round of pictures and measurements and body fat with the caliper test next week in week 10. So I'll kind of see what my composition has done in that regard. If it's gotten a little too much body fat added in too little time, then I can kind of get a little bit more conservative with the macro increases and reel that back in. But all in all, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like I'm looking pretty good still. My strength is going up. I feel like this is a healthy, sustainable, caloric intake that I'm at right now. I'm not obsessing about the food. My productivity throughout the course of a day is so much higher. Before, it was like I would do something that was mandatory, and then all I could think about was food. And then I would do something, and then it was just food. Now it's like I can sit down to work at the computer, put my head down and work for hours and not think twice about food. When it's time to eat, I'm definitely hungry, but it's not the focus of my day. So that's a huge plus as well. But yeah, hormones starting to stabilize. Everything's starting to get better in that front. And I did take another blood check. I believe I got a C-reactive protein test done and a thyroid panel done. So as soon as I get the results back from those, I will share those with you as well. Until then, y'all have a good one, and I'll see you next week for week 10.